Welcome back to another episode of Over the Glass. I am your host, Jey.
Co-host Nessa today. I wanted to start today's episode with a moment of silence. Just kidding. Just to acknowledge the devastating news that we got a couple days ago as Sharks fans.
I kind of had a similar thing that I did on last episode because I wanted to celebrate Chrona's performance lately. And I wanted to put out the praises and happiness that I feel for our baby shark as he is thrown in with the wolves.
He did great last night too.
Yeah. I feel like he's come quite away from his very first. Was this his very first appearance earlier in the season?
Oh,
No,
I think so. Was it this season or last? It's been such a long season.
I think maybe his first official start, I want to say.
Yes.
It gets blurry at this point because everything just feels like all the same. Same thing, different day.
The season has been going on for 10 years now.
Mm-hmm. But speaking of 10, so he was in one of those games where he was just getting lit up left and right, and he just looked like, a fish out of water, and it entirely was not his fault. Like, this guy is, it's nice to see him get this opportunity to kind of like get the NHL like experience, but earlier in the year the Sharks were like beyond bad. He hadn't quite gotten, hit the proper skates underneath him to acclimate him to the NHL level, and it just looked all kinds of bad. The poor guy just was trying to do anything to help the team out. But since that game, his appearance when they were over in Dallas, I thought he did like an amazing job. The Sharks at times were helping him, but for the most part, when it went into OT, I was like, oh my god, why couldn't you just lost in regulation? Like, and then when they got through OT, I was like, oh my god, why couldn't you just lost in OT? I'm like, I didn't like, I kind of wanted to see it, but then I kind of like didn't. And, like, we know how that game ended. And I was happy to see at the end of the game when he had his post game interview and he was like, oh, I was excited out there. I had a lot of fun during like the shootout, blah, blah, like genuinely. And I'm like, okay, that's great then, because I was worried for you.
He looked really good that game. I mean, I feel like a proud mama every time a prospect comes up and they do well. I'm sad I didn't catch the game last night. I turned it on, but I had such a long day. I fell asleep just before the third period started when I was getting ready to start watching, and so I literally missed the rest of it. But I was happy to see that they finally got a win. They broke their losing streak.
And Chrona finally got a win.
Yeah, he deserved it.
The poor guy deserved it for sure.
Bordelot also got a couple goals.
Yeah, so like the first 2 goals that he got this season, he was in the right place. He was in front of the net where he should be to generate the opportunity when the puck, if there's a rebound, like whatever. But like he ended up getting those 2 first goals this season. Like the puck hit him and went in, which I think
it counts.
Yeah, it counts. Like, I think I've like mentioned this at some point, but I'm going to mention it again. Like, I am not the best when it comes to scoring goals. Like, I just don't really have that like eye for the net and be calm in situations to make that like to make that decision. But I am really good at passing to teammates who know what to do with the puck. And there's been times where I have attempted to pass the puck and I can't really do sauce passes that well. Like I keep practicing at them and I just can't get like the right movement to get the nice like nice air underneath it. But I can shoot it. And what I ended up doing for a while was I would, instead of trying to pass it to a teammate with all these sticks and bodies in the way, I ended up just shooting it at them.
At your
And so it would
teammate?
hit them. Yeah. So it would hit them and then would fall in front of them and then they would score. But then when they come back over the bench, they're just like, what the hell? Why'd you hit me with the puck? And I'm like, you scored, didn't you?
It's all part of the plan.
Just like, I don't know why you're complaining at me. Suck it up. But anyway, so that's so that's kind of what I was thinking at the moment. I was like, this shouldn't count, but I was like,
I do that.
but I try to do that. I try to score off of my teammates. So I was like, okay, that counts. But like, yeah, the first two goals he got, he was in the right place. It hit him, and then it went into the net. But that third one, when they were on the power play, and I think he was on power play 1, and he was like right there up in front, at the top of the crease. I think he got the pass from, I can't remember who, because I think it must have been Eklund. It was Eklund or Granlund, because they were both on that. They were both in on that goal. I think it was down below the net or somewhere in that area, and it came up to him, and he just sniped it, like top, was it stick side? Yeah, top shelf stick side, and it was just sweet. And then that was the goal where he turned around and he got really excited, and then like Eklund was there. Okay, I'm pretty sure it was Granlund if Eklund was like up near the dot. Yeah, and then like Eklund's looking at him, and then when like he turns and the camera sees him and he's got his tongue out.
His Megan
Like
the
that,
Stallion.
like I guess that's his thing. I guess that's his thing when he gets really excited. His tongue comes out, and then made me think of Megan Thee Stallion.
Ah.
Yeah, because he's
Every
like,
time.
ah.
That's funny. Wait, so did Bordello score both goals, or did someone else score as well? I
Yeah,
didn't check.
he scored. Well, so the game ended up being 3. No, what was the game score last night?
Oh, I thought it was 2-1. Maybe it was 3-2 or 3-1.
No, they definitely scored 2, and since they won, it had to at least have been. Oh no, I guess it was just 2-1. Okay, I must have been thinking of another game. Yeah, so he scored both the goals, and yeah, I was thinking, how awesome would it have been with all the news that came out the day before. It was just like the air just left the building. I was not expecting Hertl'd to be moved. It's not like, I guess I'm not like 1,000% surprised, because we knew the situation that we're in, even though Greer said at the beginning of the season that he like wasn't, he like everyone was up for grabs except for Hertl'd. We know that things can happen in this league, in this business, that if they were given a option that worked for what they were looking for, the situation that we're in, like as hard it is to hear, as hard it is to see, we have to make that move. It just makes it even more awful that it's a divisional rival.
Not
Because
just
that's like,
a
yeah.
divisional rival, Jay. It's like the worst possible divisional rival you could send him to. Is like the most icky feeling when I saw that the news break, because I was at work. I forgot it was a trade deadline. I had stuff to do, right? And I felt my phone going off, and it was like you freaking out to Nate, like, Nate, no, and you guys wouldn't say who got traded, and it was driving me crazy. Like, what's happening? I opened Twitter,
Okay.
and I couldn't find anything. So
Okay,
it was a roller coaster of emotions.
So yeah, so work on Friday for me, like the morning just kind of like hit the fan. there was a bunch of stuff going on, and like the little pockets of moments where like I could sit down for a moment and then maybe just like quickly like look at like Cap Friendly, like, you know, reload that, and then maybe get like one flip on like Twitter to see like did we do anything, and then have to go run off and do something else. When did that come about? So
It was around
at
noon.
11, yeah, so throughout the morning, me and Nate had just been kind of like chatting here and there and being like, oh, like this came about. What do you think of that? And blah, blah, blah. But at 11:59, when I had like finally like my morning had settled down and I was like getting ready to go get lunch and all this stuff, Nate texts me with, oh my God. And I was like, what's happening? What's happening? And then he said, I'm not going to type it. So I had the same thing. And this was before Nate went on to our Discord to do the same thing. And so I had to go and be like, what are you talking about? And then I go and post a tweet from Elliot Freeman in our chat. And I was in so much disbelief that I went onto his profile to make sure it was him.
Elliot?
Because I was like, yeah. And I was like, this must be a fake account. Like, there is no way. And I went to go check, made sure he had like, you know, the sufficient evidence to show this is like his actual account. And I still went, what is this fake news? And then Nate's like, no, it's not. And we just proceeded to just like, I couldn't even type on my phone. I kept like typos left and right. And like, I can't type, what's going on? I can't. And we were just like, ah.
Oh, that was the worst feeling. Like, okay, listen, I had a very, very bad week last week, mental health wise. And to end the week with that news, I literally felt I physically felt my heart break. Like, Hertl'd, one of my favorite players, one of the very first players I ever met when I first became a hockey fan. You know, after I used to go to the rink after practices, and he was one of the guys that I met along with Martin Jones, right? So it feels like this is the end of an era. Like, the players that I got to know when I first got into this sport are all gone except for Vlasic. It's such a icky.
This is some couture eraser up in here.
Oh yeah, I forgot about him. Yes. He hasn't been playing all season. I forgot about him.
Chairs in the background, like,
sorry.
Excuse me, the captain.
Well, has he been captaining? No, Hertl'd took up that position this season. He was doing such a great job. I was so happy. He's on my fantasy team. He's been doing great. I mean, obviously he's on IR right now, but God. And then later that day when I opened up my fantasy league thing and it says BGK next to his name, I almost cried. It's so awful. And then his socials, he shared the stupid edit that Vegas posted when they announced their thing. He does not look good in gold. I refuse to accept it. That crest doesn't look on him.
Even worse than that gold dome.
Ugh, it's so ugly. Hertl'd, no.
So yeah, like after that news and just
I don't care.
Yeah,
I don't care what anyone says. I think it's the most awful trade in hockey existence. I don't care. We'll be good 4 or 5 years down the line, and I'll still come back and say that trade was awful. I hated it. I don't care. How do you give up 2 third-round picks plus your star player just to your rival? Oh. Okay. Obviously, I'm still emotional about this.
Okay, so let's kind of go through Shang Peng's report card of the trade. Because after after the emotions kind of like start to level out, and
I'm not
I,
there
I
yet.
stop seeing it through like teal colored glasses. Like, I mean, we've already mentioned that if it were like any other team, I know I would not be so like emotionally distraught.
I think so, yeah.
But when you take that part away, yeah, it's not great that we're retaining what, like, was it? It's like 17%, I think it came out with. And then we gave them 2 third round picks. Yeah, it doesn't feel great. But I did see people wanting more for him. I like, at the end of the day, I'm not an analyst in all this stuff, but some people were saying, like, oh, Greer got more for Timo than he did for Hertl'd. But let's like not kid ourselves in thinking that they were like at all in the same situations. Like,
Yeah, the
Timo is
contracts
in
were
his
different.
prime. Yeah, the contracts, like, to take on 6 years, even though the cap is going up probably in like the next year or so, or whatever. These salaries are still like growing. And Hertl'd right now is out with another knee injury. This is what, his 3rd in his career. Yeah, he's one of our top players. It's not great to give that to Vegas, where they can really utilize that amongst all the rest of their stars, but they are taking on a bit of a liability that he might not be healthy. And like, one of the things that I did want to point out from even like what Shang was talking about is that Hertl'd fits the Golden Knights win now timeline, because he is like 30. You to think that he's gonna do like what Joe Pavelski's doing right now, like, I mean, that's, you can't compare the two. But for us, it makes sense to get like a young prospect and another draft pick for a rebuild. Like, I I have said continuously that when Hertl'd, like, they should have never given him that option to sign. And I know that Hertl'd loves it here. I know that, like, when it came down to whether they were going to sign him for another contract or not, like, I'm sure the fact that he really wanted to, like, break, be help to bring San Jose back up into, like, where we were all those years before. And I don't blame him for having that optimism, but I really feel like we should have been the one to put our foot down and be like, and people are saying, like, why would you sign a player to this 8-year contract the season before you change a GM? Like, I know that there were things going on with like Doug Wilson, and like, maybe we don't know some things. Maybe they were hopeful that he would come back. Like, maybe they didn't know that it really wasn't going to turn out like for the better. Who knows? But it just seems like, and then on top of that, to see some folks blaming Mike Greer, like, he's just like, yeah, like, maybe this isn't going to work out. And maybe Hertl'd does end up like being like one of their like super, super top stars. And maybe they win like cups for like the next 6 years, blah, 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 and whatever.
Wow.
Yeah, it's going to be like, geez, awful. Like, it's going to be brutal. But like, let's say, and we don't know, like, let's say nobody was interested in Hertl'd. Or maybe they were only going to give us
Everyone
like
was interested in
a
Hertl'd.
bag of pucks.
I think for Hertl'd, it really was just about the contract. Because anyone would want Tomas Hertl'd on their team. Let's be real here.
I think your favoritism is showing.
He's a good player.
I
He's
don't
great.
deny.
He showed a lot of good leadership this year. I think that's very valuable.
Okay, so I don't deny that somebody would want Hertl'd on their team, but because we signed him, he had 6 years left. Like,
right.
We're seeing like how things have been happening this season. Like, teams that are going to make the playoffs are in a position where they really have to find a way to make a good deal, and
That's
not
what I'm saying.
like a deal. Okay.
That's what I'm saying. Like for Hertl'd, the problem was the contract. Not
Okay.
like anyone would want Hertl'd on their team. The problem was the contract, because who wants to pay $8 million a year for an aging player who has history of knee injuries, right? I get it.
Yeah. And so maybe Vegas, unfortunately, they figure out ways to do this, and they gave Greer an option that he felt like, if we hang on to Hertl'd any longer, like let's say we hang on to him and then the next couple seasons, like he can't finish out seasons because he gets another knee injury, or maybe something unfortunate happens. I mean, you look at Couture right now, he came back for only a handful of games and now he's not even sure if he can play hockey again.
Yeah.
Like, things just happen, and now we just have this cap hit. Well, we could move him and whatever to IR and things like that, but now we just have this contract and we can't get anything out of it. And, I always felt like he was going to get moved at some point, whether it was now, whether it was like a couple years down the line when we're going nowhere and he's turning like 30 something, and he wants a chance to win the cup. And I understand that he's a fan favorite. I've enjoyed him from the very first time that like we got any sort of footage with him, and he's like at home at his farm and he's sleeping with pigs, like just like those memories, and just, like what he talked about like on Instagram about how he was this kid who came in here and he didn't speak a lick of English, and it was always so like heartwarming to see him try, and then
Always
he'd get so excited that he would just like talk without periods in his sentence.
He talks in cursive.
And he's just like, oh my god, yeah, so and we're just like,
For
you're
sure.
so adorable. And he's just like grown before our eyes as a player, as a person, and all this stuff. So I get that there's all that behind it, but like, yeah, once I kind of like got down from the overload of emotions and started to see this objectively, I think it is the best move at the moment. I know next season maybe we'll see something that could be like, oh, we could have done that, it could have been better. Like, yeah, things could have always been better. Just like how people continue to go back and say like, oh, if we had never gotten Erik Karlsson, we could have had like Tim, Stutzla. Like, we would have had the pick. We might not have had him specifically. But at the time,
money always.
Yeah, like it's always, and I'm not saying that I know everything and I understand the frustration, but like the thing that ended up getting me more upset is, and it's only like it's just a small little like pool of people that you kind of see like in your 2 seconds on Twitter or whatever, that are blaming Greer. Like, Greer inherited this mess.
Yeah.
And he's just trying to make the best decisions.
Okay.
And
it's funny that you mentioned that, because I feel like my initial reaction was to be one of those people. I was like, I've never felt so close to hating the man. I've understood every single one of his moves since he came in here, but this one hurt. How dare you send him to Vegas? How dare you? I understand moving him. I do. It's the team he chose to move him to. I understand it's a business. I understand this was the best possible return that we could have had, but I can't get over the fact that it's Vegas. How am I supposed to root for him now, Jay? How?
So I watched the media appearance for Greer after the trade deadline had come to pass, and he was asked about, had you thought about the fact that you're trading him to a divisional rival and he's going to theoretically be there for 6 years? And he said, yeah, that came up in discussions with management. And, I did try to get a clause in there to have him not play against us. And I laughed because I was like, because he did it with such a straight face. And I was like, Greer's got jokes. He's got jokes. And I was talking about it with a couple of friends of mine. And one of them had, mentioned, understanding fans getting emotional about one of their favorites going to Vegas, and not so much just generally related to hockey, but just Vegas as a whole, with like the A's going to Vegas and the Raiders going off
I didn't
there.
even think about
like,
that.
Yeah. So I was like, yeah, I totally understand that. I totally get that everyone who has ties with the Bay, and particularly like those teams and whatever, they're kind of feeling like Vegas is just kind of taking everything from them. And I'm like, yeah, I totally get that. I totally get the emotional side of a player going there. And and they'd all said, I wonder if Greer really understands like that side from the fan base. And not to say that that should at all dictate who the type of decisions that he makes. We obviously want him to try and make the objective decision. And because if we made all of these decisions like emotionally, well, we would keep all of our players that we wanted, but we would like go nowhere.
That's what we were doing where Greer came in.
Exactly. So that is exactly what I was saying, like also in response, that like I get that part, and then I also see it as we went the opposite direction for so many years, where we gave our favorites hometown discounts, and we're just like, just one more season, we can get over the hump. And everyone was happy to see, like our Thorntons and our Marlows and our Pavelskis and everything, and we just couldn't get there. But at least we had our favorites, right? So yeah, we're kind of, yeah. So like, I get it. Everyone's, we're frustrated because now we're like, who are these people out on the ice? But what I did love about yesterday is I know that the guys, so they had said that yesterday they were supposed to have a practice, and they ended up just kind of, it was like a bonding emotional farewell. Everyone got to see whoever off and everything like that. But you still knew that the loss would still be felt even during that game. And I was just thinking, like, when we also shipped off Kaapo Kakkonen, which again, like, had to happen because he's on an expiring contract. I do feel like it was a weird trade, but I kind of was like, okay, that makes sense. You kind of just like get whatever back from him, because if you don't find a way to trade him, then he just walks in the off season. And that's like, I think that's the worst outcome, the worst of the two outcomes. I don't know how I feel about Vanacek coming in, because
I talked to Jude about it, kind of, but it was more so like off ice things.
Oh, is he?
No.
Okay.
No, they said, here, let me pull up the text. I can quote them properly. They said, "Okay, but you're getting the absolute most adorable man on the planet. It's too bad he can't
Okay.
stop a puck to save his life because he's really a gem." I'm like, "Oh, so we're getting an awesome person, but he might not be a great goalie."
I mean,
We love those.
we've been dealing with that anyway, which is kind of what like my reaction to it was, where people, I saw some like New Jersey fans being like on both sides, they were laughing at the fact that they got Kakinen, and then making jokes about how like we have Blackwood and now we went to go grab Vanacek, and they're saying like, oh, the Sharks saw this tandem and went, yes, we'll take that.
Yeah.
And I was just like, yeah, we will, because we're in an era where all of your project guys, give them to us. We'll take them.
Yeah, we're that team right now. People come here to try and prove themselves so they can be shipped off to better teams.
But I do need to mention that earlier in the week, when I saw that graphic of like the three
the
New Jersey Devil goalies at the time, and then I went to go look at our goalies, and I was like, they should, and I was totally joking, they should trade for one of our guys because they have a slightly higher GAA by like
0.02 points.
Whatever it was. I'm like, instant upgrade in goal. They would maybe stop half a shot.
I think I need some of your manifestation energy, because you also manifested Timo's hat trick the other night.
It was because I kept seeing like I don't really follow the Devils, so I didn't really notice that they were playing Timo on his off wing.
Mm-hmm.
But just the way that the Devils have just like fallen from grace this season.
Yeah.
And just the entire fan base being like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And particularly, why are you not playing Timo as a right wing? And it just made me think back to the first season that the Stars had Pavelski, and they were like playing him like at the point. And I was like, in all his years that he was with us, have you ever seen him at the point?
Nobody
on
watches
the power
Sharks.
play. Like, go back, you all just like look at like 2 games, go back and look at our power play, which was one of the best power plays like during 5-6 years ago or whatever. His specialty is right in front of the net. Why are you playing him at the point? And they did that for like almost a whole season, and I hated seeing, a random group of fans being like, oh, this Pavelski guy, I don't really like this trade. And I'm just like, no, you shut up. You guys are playing him wrong. And then they finally were like, get Ben out of the way, get him out of the way of the net, put Pavelski there, boom, problem solved. And that's why, so when I saw that they moved Timo after they blew up their coaching, their head coach position, and then they put in a new guy, and then the new guy tried out like some of the similar stuff that the previous dude did, and they didn't. I don't recall how that went, but I'd imagine if you went and changed your line some more, it didn't work out so well. And then when I saw that they came out with the lineup and everyone's being like, oh, look, Timo's on the right wing. And I was like, hat trick incoming.
And it happened. Jude was so happy. They were like, oh my God, I'm so happy. They absolutely adore Timo, which makes me so happy. Like, he was very beloved here in San Jose as well. And it's nice to see him being loved in a different team, because he has been struggling. Not completely his fault. Like you mentioned, all this, he's been played in the right position or whatever. But then you see all the fans getting frustrated, like, this was such a waste. Like, why did we trade for this guy? And it's like, no, you don't understand. He has to like get acclimated, like, or you have to play him properly. You'll understand why we love him so much.
Yeah, not only does he need to get acclimated, like, then now you're gonna ask him to play a position that he like has not quite shown success in.
Yeah.
Like, look at the tapes. And yeah, so I was really happy to see that hat trick the other day because it's like finally, and it's also kind of upsetting as a Sharks fan because I mean the Devils are fighting for a playoff spot.
Oh my god.
We kind of need you guys to get to the playoffs.
I forgot about that. They not just that, we want them to make it to the conference final for us to get a first round.
You're counting on you.
Get your shit together, Jersey.
Like now Timo needs to get hat tricks like every game for like the next 20 games. And then with their goaltender situation, which is still
Kakinen's gonna come in and save them.
He's gonna pull an Aiden Hill.
You never know.
I don't know how realistic that is, but the fact that we traded for Blackwood, and I'm not saying that this would have still happened because I know that they like had their time with him and they were at a point where they're like, we need to move on, we need to do whatever. I want to go back to Vanacek. Like, I like that he is a good personality. I guess I questioned the trade that Jersey made for him because he was with the Capitals before that, and him and Samsonov were like 1A, 1B, and they just like, okay, the Capitals were not helping them most nights on the fence and whatever, but I was just like, this should be interesting. Like for both the Leafs and for the Devils when they traded for these guys, I'm like, that'll be interesting to see. And so I think he did okay this because this is like his second season with the Devils, I want to say. Maybe I have it wrong, but I was questionable about it. And so when they decided this is going to be our dude, and then like whoever, like Dawes or Schmid, is it Schmid? Schmid. There you go. Schmid, like freaking hook. So I was like, okay, like I can't say I knew anything about the franchise and you know what's not working, but I was just questionable about having that goalie who was so on and off with the Capitals. And then we went and grabbed Blackwood, which I wasn't the biggest fan of in the beginning, but you know, he's come about, he's kind of been that goalie of the two who makes that extra push to keep us in the game.
Do you think he would have been moved if he wasn't injured right now? Instead of Kakinen or in addition to?
I feel like he wouldn't have, only because just the moves that Greer's been making are a lot of them, with the exception of like Ohoktu, like have been from the previous era. He just seems like he's like slowly moving out all the guys that he did not bring in. So even though Blackwood was doing, like, I'm not saying that like if he didn't get an offer for Blackwood wouldn't have gone, like had he been healthy. But I felt like more so just because Kakinen's on an expiring contract, it made more sense to move him. And then maybe Blackwood gets moved next season. Who knows? But
depending how I just good found Chrona does. You're like, no, because Chrona came in the last regime. I don't know what to call it.
I'm looking forward to whatever ends up happening between, I want to say the next season, Blackwood and Vanacek are like the two that start with the Sharks. I still I don't want Chrona to like be in any situation where he ends up having to like play way more games than like, you know, like moving up his timeline sooner than he should. I would love to see him more next season. And, you know, obviously he's going to be playing more of these remainder games and whatever. But like the fact that we took Blackwood and then they took Cochran, it almost kind of feels like the same thing.
Like, why didn't we make that trade last year?
How do you feel about Kokken departing? I was trying to think about in terms of like I think I would make that trade again with Middleton. Middleton's just, he needed to go off to a different team and like, like have his chance to have him here. I think like he would he would still be a trade piece just because of how well he's been doing. So I think I would always make that trade. And then we sent them what, like a third or something?
Something like that.
So it sucks that it didn't really work out. And then what we ended up getting where is the trade?
Did we get a draft pick in that?
Oh, we sent them a 7th round. No, we got back a 7th round with Vanacek.
Oh, that's weird. I hadn't seen that. How do I feel about it?
It's just like an unfortunate circumstances that he improved. He just didn't get to where I feel like we needed him to be.
Right. I was happy to see him improve this season because we always root for goalies out here out in these parts. But yeah, if you're looking at it logistically on paper, it doesn't super make sense if we gave up a third to get him on top of a player just to get him, right? We didn't get any picks in return. And
we just got him.
Just to ship him off and still... Did we give up a draft pick?
No.
Okay.
So our trade to the Wild, we gave up I believe it was a third and Middleton.
Right.
And then in return, after sending him to New Jersey, we get Vitek Vanacek and a 7th round pick. Right. Which I think kind of balances out.
And I think the draft pick was probably to kind of balance out the fact that Vanacek's contract is more than Kakkonen's. Maybe that's why we got
him. Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I mean, it's one of those trades where it's like it is what it is. I feel like it didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, it sucks to see him go because I was I was rooting for the guy, but I wasn't like super attached to him. And after seeing the Hertl'd news, it was just like, you know what? Just get rid of everyone at this point. It doesn't matter.
Get rid of everything.
We literally had a fire sale.
So
when we got rid of 6 guys this trade deadline.
What?
We got rid of like 6 guys this trade deadline, right?
Something like that. We shipped off Nikita Hertl'd for a 5th round pick to Calgary. The conditions for that is San Jose will receive the better of the 2 2024 5th round picks that Chicago owns. So, I mean, Hertl'd came in with the trade for Timo. I just feel like we have a lot of young defensemen right now. And he, like I'm rooting for Addison. I feel like he's had a bit of like a slow start with us in comparison to the other guys. And we always like to reiterate the having to acclimate to the system and everything like that. But I feel like Nikita was one of those guys that just, you could tell he was trying his best, but then the other guys were kind of outshining him at times. And then he would, like, I feel like he was almost kind of like ending up in the box way more than like he was doing more good things. So I just feel like it was a hard season for him. So it's unfortunate that like we got him with the Timo trade and then just kind of like,
yeah,
goodbye.
Yeah, that's the sucky part of the business side, right? Yeah, I don't really mind this one either because we do have a backlog of a bunch of young defensemen. Speaking of which, today's Mario Day, so happy Mario Day. We didn't ship off our favorite, which at least
that would have been awful had him and Hertl'd gone.
I would have given up on this team. I wouldn't have watched. I would have protested and not watched any other game this season. You can't do that to me.
But speaking of defensemen, Radim Shimmick
Yeah, that was random for me. I wasn't expecting it. I don't mind it
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he wants to be playing in the NHL. He still has some potential. He's like my age, so he's on the older side in hockey terms. But I don't know. Like we keep shipping off the captains of the CUDA. Like, where's the leadership on that team? They're struggling so much already.
Someone's gonna get like awarded the C and they're gonna go, ugh.
Oh my god, this reminds me. Oh, I can't even grab it. Hold on, I'm gonna turn my camera off because I need to grab something. You can keep talking.
Okay. Well, I felt like the Redeem Shimmick trade, as much as it is sad to see a player who had gone and spent a number of years with the Sharks, he was kind of hit with like a series of injuries, and then with the transition to new GM and making this team in his image, like I just really felt like Redeem wasn't really fitting in with that. And then, him to get sent down, and with all of the injuries that were coming about this season, you started to see like, yeah, a bunch of like CUDA players were coming up,
But not
but
him.
Redeem Shimmick isn't one of those guys.
Yep. Okay.
You kind of saw the writing on the wall, and he's not someone who should be playing in the AHL necessarily. So to move him and to get a young player, I feel like it just makes sense to do it, as much as, we hate to see these guys go that have spent, a number of seasons with our team.
Okay, I want to show you something that's gonna it makes me sad now that I have this.
Oh no. Oh no.
So for those of you listening and not watching, I have the bobblehead of Tomas Hertl'd and Redeem Shimmick as Ninja Turtles.
No. Okay. I had a similar moment yesterday. I came back in from walking my dog, went to go sit down on the sofa, turned towards my like bookshelf with all of like my random things, and one of my baubles is the one that they handed out of Tomas Hertl'd this season.
Did you cry?
They made I just had this moment of just like,
oh,
you guys made all these bobbleheads of him, and I get it. Like, they're obviously they wanted to go out and get the Bay excited to come out to Sharks games. Who better to market than Tomas Hertl'd? What better thing to do to hand out bobbleheads of this guy? Makes sense. I get it. Like, the marketing side of it is not asking Greer, like, please hold on to this dude because it won't make any sense if we make bobbleheads of this guy. Like, I get it. Like, they're not all like trying to make all of this like make sense. But I just had this moment where I was just like, man.
yeah.
So many people have a bauble of this guy at their home right now, and he's not in teal anymore.
I saw a tweet yesterday. I don't know. I think it was Shane and Curtis Pashelka, who they said that they took a walk around the arena yesterday, and they already took down all of the Hertl'd stuff. That made me so sad. I get it because he's a star player and he plays for another team, but like, that's an ugly breakup right there.
Okay, but I have to bring up, and I brought this up, yes, last episode. I can't recall yet what we were talking about, but we were talking about like trades, and I think we were anticipating this week, like trades and like all that stuff. No, wait, no, we were talking about goalies. I was talking about Chrona and saying how for a while now I've been wanting a franchise goalie because Martin Jones should have been that for us, and we wanted him to be that for us, and just didn't work out that way. So the last time we really had one was like Evgeny Nabokov. But because we were so invested in Jones, there was that season where at Shark Size, whatever it's called now, where they practice, there is from the locker rooms to the south rink, there's this wall. I don't know if it's changed now, but I have a picture of it. There was a giant Martin Jones mural, a giant goddamn picture of his face. And I remember I was leaving from a game and I just kind of looked at it and then I was like, this is going to be so bad if like he gets traded or we buy him out next season. And we did. And it stayed up on that wall for a whole season. And I joked that because that's where the Sharks change in those locker rooms and they go over to the South Rink to do their practice. And I was joking that it stayed up there because it's like a warning to the other players.
Do your best or else.
Or else you'll turn into this guy.
That's awful.
So I almost feel like, oh, good, they went around to take those down because I have to keep seeing that Jones face for a whole season. And I was like, when is someone going to paint over this thing? I get that someone painted this and kudos to the artist, but yikes. There's a giant face of a guy who is not here anymore, who got bought out.
Yeah. I think I like two things a part of this trade deadline this year. And one of them was the Anthony Duclair trade, which we talked about it the last time I was on the podcast. I didn't want to see him go for all the off-ice reasons. He seems like a great dude. On ice, or at least like the locker room presence, he meant a lot to the team, and you absolutely felt that the game after they traded him, because there was absolutely no energy on that ice and everyone played like they were depressed. But from a hockey business standpoint, we got a relatively young prospect and a third for this upcoming draft. Anthony Duclair, I think, is an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season, and there's still the possibility, like, he's open to coming back. So if he comes back during the off season, that's a great trade all around. If he doesn't, it's still a good trade. Maybe he likes it in Tampa.
We did that with Marlowe.
Right. And then the other one, which was an unexpected, very wholesome moment, was the trade for Devin Cooley. I didn't know this until, all the information started coming out, but I guess he's a local kid. He grew up playing for the Junior Sharks. He grew up in, I forget what city.
Los Gatos.
Oh, Los Gatos. Los Gatos. And then they started posting pictures of him as a kid with Sharky, and then when he came in yesterday to do media stuff, they recreated that photo of them together. It was really cute and wholesome. So, it's trade deadlines are always hard when you're a sucky team and you have to ship off a lot of your favorite players, especially when you're emotional like me and get attached. But it's nice to have these little moments of like these new guys coming in and giving you hope, a little bit of hope for the future of where this team may go. And if not, it's like one of those, it's like aftercare. Let me make you feel good for a little bit.
And I also love that him and Magnus know each other.
Yeah.
Because they played the University of Denver. I remember reading that, so Cooley is a few years older than him. And I think the season that Chrona came in, I think Cooley got injured. And so Magnus in his freshman year ended up becoming the starter. So, I kind of, granted, I feel like Cooley is probably going to be down in the CUDA. Chrona will probably be down there next season as well. I just kind of like the fact that, they just have that connection already. And we love seeing our goalies, feed off of each other and have that bond and whatever. So I really liked that aspect of it. generally, like, that game yesterday, like, I felt like it was gonna just I was expecting to see, like, the tank completely empty. I mean, it was a giveaway day, so there were, I think there it was almost sold out. I saw someone tweet about it. It was just, like, shy of, like, a couple of tickets from being sold out. It was a really good game from what we could see. So it was a nice response from the team after a really difficult trade deadline. It was really nice to see that, like, Zetterlin, Bordelot, Eklund, Granlund, like, these guys that are going to be part of the future of this team, coming in and you know generating and producing uh for what they should be doing. And I think someone had mentioned that, like, the power play has been kind of popping off lately, which has just been, like, horrendous for most of the season. Like, the personnel on both the units have just been like a revolving door. So it's nice to see,
Mm-hmm.
and especially given that those four players that I mentioned, I believe, are on the first power play, and they are going to be, potentially here for, like, the seasons moving forward. So that's great to see at the end of the season, despite Hertl'd being moved on, all the other folks being moved on, Couture, being questionable for, like, his hockey career in general. Like, this is kind of like what we expected to see. Had we expected it much sooner? No, but it's happened now, and I think I was really happy to see that there was a good response yesterday, despite everything that happened.
Yeah, I wish I saw it. What a day. Uh, what an emotional couple days here. Hockey's supposed to be like my what is it that the people say, like, this, like, I want to get away from reality and watch sports.
Yeah,
Like,
my escape.
yeah, I understand the homophobes now.
Just play hockey.
Oh my god. This has been rough. Anyways, should we talk about toxic hockey masculinity? Just for fun?
Sure. You want to set us up for this discussion?
Sure. So there's this guy that used to play in the league named, I don't know how to
Yeah,
pronounce.
speaking of, okay, so actually I'm going to
You can set it up.
when no, I want to say my initial thoughts when I saw this, because I don't follow this guy.
Me neither.
And so when I saw this tweet, I was like, what does this have to do with anything that I follow? Like, I didn't get it.
Yeah.
And then when I saw the team that he had previously played on, and then, like, oh, he's talking about the Sharks. He's talking in response to the Senators getting killed by, like, the 31st team in the league.
Gotcha. Yes. So I don't know how
Okay.
to say his last name. Mark Method or Method?
Method.
So I guess he used to play for the Ottawa Senators. I've never heard of him except for when he's talking trash on the tweeters. I don't know if that's a diss or just because I am a newer hockey fan. But this tweet came up this morning, and he just decides to rant and says, if I'm a player on this current roster, addressing the Senators, I'm not posting anything on social media this summer unless it's training or skating. No postseason vacation stuff. Keep that crap off your feet and at least pretend to take the off season seriously. This is such
like,
a, like,
I read this several times, once to figure out, like, who is he talking about it in general? Is he whatever? So when I realized he was talking about the Senators, and then I was like, are you being serious though?
No, he's definitely being
I'm like,
serious. It's like old man yells at cloud meme, you know?
mm-hmm.
So Brock McGillis, our dear friend Brock here, decides to respond to him, quote tweets him, and says, I feel like this is part of the problem and leads to longer losing streaks and poor play. Hockey players criticized for being human leads to them only focusing on hockey and dwelling on negatives. Work hard, but enjoy your time away and clear your mind. And they had a back and forth on Twitter. I don't know if I should read it just for context.
Might as well.
But so Mark responds and says, "Give it a rest, Brock. We get it." Brock says, "Mark, you should stop posting and focus on your bad take." Mark replies, "You'll get a few likes from your circle of followers, and that's fine. I'll focus my time and energy on my family for the remainder of the day, not some online grifter looking for attention. Cheers, man." Brock responds, "My circle? I don't even know if we have the same followers or not and don't care. I don't follow you or know anything about you except that you played it. I disagreed with her comment and respectfully shared an opinion. Quote unquote, give it a rest. Isn't a discussion, but yes, I'm the grifter. LOL." And then he had like a little shrug emoji. But
yeah, and Mark says nothing.
Yeah, how can you expect? Look, I understand hockey is a game, and it is a privilege to play this game as a career. You know, this is your what is the word I'm looking for? You're living. You're playing hockey as as living, right?
Yeah.
Whatever. I get that. You know, a bunch of us wish we could play sports for a living and like pay off our bills and that. But it is still a job. I've said this before. We will continue to say it. Hockey is their job. They are getting paid for it. They don't have to spend 24/7 thinking, eating, breathing, sitting in it all the time. They're human. That leads to such negative thoughts and emotions. Let them live their lives. Why are you angry about it? I don't understand.
So we were talking about this before we hopped on, and I was seeing like some other comments who were agreeing with Mark and saying, "Yeah, you know, I get what you're saying, Brock, but Mark's right because they need to respect the fans." And you know, and I was telling you like I'm looking forward to the Sharks off season and seeing them have fun because they need to have fun. This has been a really tough season. Like the players who are left on the team or even throughout the season when there's been so many line changes. And I get that the Senators are in a different situation where they were expected to make that next step this season. And with like the talent of like Brady Tkachuk and like Tim Stützle and like I believe what's his Josh Norris is injured right now. Like they have they're in a totally different situation than the Sharks. They're not in a rebuild. They have done it and now they need to go start moving up, and they, for whatever reason, they haven't. I get that you're upset that they, for whatever reason, look like they're not as focused on hockey.
Yeah.
And because you're upset that your team is not going to make the playoffs, you don't want to see them having fun this summer.
Yeah.
They better only show you that they are working to get better for next season. This is the same sort of like silliness that when the Sharks were before our rebuild era began and Couture, I don't know, I think had an off season or maybe just in general the Sharks were having a bad season. I remember seeing like Couture posted like the books he was reading on his Instagram, and some comment was just like basically like, how dare you be reading? What's your problem, dude?
How dare you get educated or just enjoy yourself reading? Okay, I want to talk about this in a different perspective. Okay, let's talk about hockey as a legitimate job. I feel like the trade deadline you can compare to layoffs. A lot of people have gone through layoffs and are currently going through layoffs, or the job market sucks right now. I hear about them all the time. Now imagine you get laid off or a close friend of you, coworker of yours gets laid off, if you've never been through a layoff, that is a very awful feeling when it's like a mass layoff, right? I have been through one before. I had been on the receiving end of being laid off, and I have talked to people who survived the layoffs and told me what it was like in that office after the fact. Okay? So, on the perspective of a person who has been laid off, you are losing your job. I mean, you're still getting paid for a little bit with the severance package, but whatever. You're losing your job. You're losing your your routine, what you're used to, the place where you used to like live in the sense of the hockey players. And yes, you're moving on to a different job immediately, but you have to go through all of these emotions, or you have to suppress that, right? Because the season keeps going and you got to keep going. That's going to hit you in the off season, I'm sure. You don't get to grieve through that at all. You just keep playing. And yes, it's part of the sport, whatever. On the other side of it, the players who stay, who were not laid off, it feels empty because you created these bonds, like these relationships with these people, and in the blink of an eye, they're gone, right? And you have all these new people coming in that you're trying to be welcoming to, whatever, but it's not going to feel the same. And again, you don't really have a moment to process it because the season keeps going. Give these guys a break and let them do what they need to do in the off season to recharge so they can come back the next season stronger. Like, I don't understand why this is such a hard concept for some people.
And we could also look at how many players have entered the player assistant program this season alone. For a number of them for mental health related reasons. Even somebody like a Sam Girard, he's on a team that's, gonna make the playoffs and, things are looking great. But even in situations where things seem to be going great, things personally may not be going great. And who's to say that like the Senators players aren't feeling the weight of the fact that there is all of this expectation for them to make the playoffs, and for one reason or another they just haven't. And you're saying, well, I don't give a shit that like you need a break. Like you should have been like, instead of getting ready to play golf and for the summer this year, you should have been in the playoffs. So since you're not going to the playoffs, I don't even want to see you having fun. Like that's I don't yeah, that goes back into what you're talking about, how people feel like, they own these players because they've been eat, living, breathing this team. Like, Mark in particular, he has a particular attachment to this franchise because he played with the team. So I do feel like he wants them to have success, and it's to the point where it's instilling this toxic mentality of, well, in order to get successful, you're just gonna have to like eat, live, breathe, sleep hockey. And like the fact that he said like, oh, pretend that you're actually focusing on hockey. like I don't even want to like, that's so what? I don't know.
Just pretend
I
for
just,
my sake.
yeah, it's like weird.
Yeah, the entitlement.
That says a whole lot about how you process things.
Yeah, but also the entitlement to tell people how to live their lives, right? Like, who are you? You think you have a right to tell them how they should go about their careers because you played? I still don't know you. What impact did you make in the sport?
But give it a rest, Brock. Yeah, that whole interaction was just so bizarre. I'm just like, does he know who he's talking to? Like, Brock's doing more to like better the sport than you saying these guys should just like not exist this summer. Just don't exist in my mind. Just let me think that you're actually working hard for next season by just going away.
So
this
weird.
summer.
It's so weird. Anyways, just wanted to get out off my chest.
Uh, but yeah, I guess that's all I really want to talk about.
We talked a lot about the Sharks.
Um,
There's not really any good feel stories out right now, right? I didn't see any, so sorry to end this on such a gloomy note.
I guess I do have a little bit of a closing thought that came to my mind. Late last night, I saw that the Blackhawks are the first team to get eliminated from the playoffs. And it just had me thinking, do I just like not get maybe I'm just seeing it only through teal colored lenses. Maybe that's really the only things that come to my feed. Maybe I'm not seeing like the same level of like criticalness that comes to the Sharks that may be delivered over to the Hawks franchise. But I feel like the Sharks are being unfairly picked on when the Hawks are pretty much in the same situation where they've just like completely are starting to, they moved all their stars out. They are putting together a random group of people just to surround their star. They get a star. We're getting there. And like we can't compete with the fact that Chicago has more of a hockey presence than like we're coming about it in this area, but like, and the fact that they have Bedard, like the fan base has reasons to come out to the game, like as a whole. Like I will still come in and watch the games even if there's like 1,000 people in the stands. Like I'm kind of going about, like I know it sucks that we're not going to be in the playoffs for quite a while. And it's a different way to approach watching this game, but it is really exciting to see these young guys coming up and you get to grow with them and you get to watch them, succeed. We're not quite there yet where we want to be, but like we had mentioned numerous times in this episode alone, it was really awesome to see Eklund, Bordelot. I mean, I know Granlund's like on the veteran side of things now. Zetterlund, like Chrona having an amazing game. Like all these new acquisitions, despite the fact that we had to watch guys that we'd grown to love in the previous era move on. It is a bit of a process to go through, but everything is being done in the decision making that I feel benefits us in the long run. And so I'm trying to, I'm kind of like been watching and following this team this season in that sort of perspective where I am excited to see all this stuff come about. And they are still going to struggle. They are still going to lose. But even like a season alone with Eklund, remember when he came in and you could tell that he knew what to do. He just maybe couldn't get there. He couldn't just like, fit in quite right. He needed to spend that year down with the Barracuda. I wasn't really sure what to expect when he came up this season. Like I remember like we were talking about where would he, line up in amongst the guys, and with Couture being out and then Hertl'd coming down, he's really been like the guy to really show that he's going to be part of this future, and has been so exciting to see. All of that to say, despite all that, I just feel like why do I feel like the NHL media as a whole have just been like, ooh, Bedard, and like not kind of giving the, the harshness that the Hawks, but pretty much like, you guys totally tanked last season to do this.
Right. Right. I think you know why. It's because they're Chicago, and for some reason everyone loves them so much no matter all of the wrongs that they've done. And they have that star player that everyone's excited about. Like they suck this season. There's no reason for their fans to be excited other than the fact that they have this star right now, right? what do we have? We're giving away our stars. Everyone knew that we were...
Like, we constantly get, what are the Sharks doing? And it's like...
Well, now they can't really say it because Greer finally said the word rebuild. He finally said it in the press thing that happened.
But they knew we were doing it,
I
even
know,
though
but now
Greer
they
didn't
can't deny
say
it.
it.
They're like, oh, they're
But
not.
we still get the, why would the Sharks do that?
Listen,
It's like,
I
what else would you have done? We're in a situation where we have all these contracts that we need to move, and no one is just going to be friendly and take it off our hands without some sort of retention, like some way to make it, favor them in some way. Yeah, it's not going to be like a blockbuster, awesome trade for like, yeah, like I just got super defensive when people are just like, why would Sharks retain and give it to divisional rival and blah blah blah, and it's like, what else would you have us do?
At that point, I think they need to start looking at it as a way of Greer doing right by Hertl'd. Right? Yes, it's a divisional rival, but they just won the cup last year, and he wants to give Hertl'd the best chance at winning a cup himself.
That is a good point, because I did notice yesterday how Hertl'd had a no movement clause. So it's not like he could have just been like, oh, cool, offer, goodbye. He did have to sit down with Hertl'd, be like, look, and it's not to say that he wouldn't have done that, but he definitely had to do it because of that in his contract. He had to sit down with Hertl'd. Hertl'd had to go through this whole season and really start to reflect on like the direction of this team and what is best for him. And, you could say, well, who cares? Like that, in my eyes, that would be a bad trade. Who cares what the player wants? Like, keep him here. And especially if that's your favorite player, yeah, you don't want to see him go. But yeah.
Yeah, and it's so funny because I feel like if it was any other player, I'd be so upset and be like, you fucking traitor, you chose to go there? But it's Hertl'd. Like, he's so soft. Like, you know that he put a lot of thought into it. He knew what it was going to mean to fans. You knew he took that into consideration, but you gotta be selfish sometimes. He wants to win the cup. I get it. It is what it is.
As much as I want him to win the cup,
Just not with that team.
If it happens, it happens, Hertl'd. But no part of me can be like, you go off and get that cup.
It's so hard. I can't. If it happens, I'm gonna have to Photoshop a Sharks jersey on him lifting it.
Okay. I think that should conclude our episode.
I'm gonna go drink a cup of tea. I need a hug.
But hope everyone else survived the trade deadline. There were a whole lot of other transactions that happened, but man, the Sharks did so much this trade deadline. It almost seemed like they weren't like Barbaro was also supposed to go, and then I saw that ended up falling through because the Hertl'd deal happened. So, I mean, sucks that Barbie wanted to leave and he's stuck, but too bad.
He'll walk for nothing in the off season, but gotta weigh the options there. Sorry, Barbie.
All right. Well, hang tight, Sharks territory. We I think we've got some exciting things, happening for next season. But until then, I'm excited to see, until Blackwood comes back, Chrona and potentially Cooley are going to get some starts. I'm excited to see Cooley get to play in his first NHL game with the team that he grew up with. Like, come on, can we get behind this right
That's
now?
cute.
This is so exciting for this guy.
Really
he
fun.
is so excited.
That's going to be fun.
So... yeah, so we've got those vibes to carry us the rest of the way of the season, and then we get to cross all of our fingers
and toes.
and toes that we get Celebrini this off season.
I think we've been through enough, man. Give us something good.
But I saw that we've got a ton of draft picks for this upcoming draft, so I think it's going to be really exciting. And then in a different way, I'm excited to see next season because I think some of the guys from the Cooter are going to start coming up and getting their chance. Whether or not it's going to be for the full season, who knows? But there's a lot of exciting things. So, yay.
We're just running on good vibes here. We're trying to.
And I'm just going to pretend that team in Nevada does not exist.
Oh, God. All right.
Anyways, okay. I'm your host, Jey.
I'm co-host Nessa. Thanks for joining us. Take care of yourselves, guys. It's been a rough one.
Bye.